There is a forest on the edge of Cluj-Napoca, in the heart of Transylvania, that has been quietly unsettling people for centuries. It doesn't roar or rattle. It does not announce itself. It simply stands there, about 295 hectares of beech and oak, and waits. Its name is Hoia Baciu, and it has a very long memory. The story that most people begin with is the one from 1968, because it comes with a photograph. Alexandru Sift was a military technician and an amateur photographer who spent considerable time documenting the unexplained. On an August evening, he pointed his camera at the sky above the forest and captured what appeared to be a disc-shaped object hovering in the frame. The image was not blurred, it was not double exposed, it was simply there, a dark, deliberate shape against the pale Romanian sky. Sift was not a man given to hysteria. He published the photograph, he stood behind it, and then, as tends to happen with such things, the debate began and has never quite stopped. What was in that photograph remains officially unresolved. Around the same time, a biologist named Alexandru Petrescu was conducting research in the area. He was a scientist, trained to observe and classify, not to speculate. But something inside Hoia Baciu stopped him cold. At the center of the forest, and this is a detail that has since been verified by multiple researchers, botanists among them, there is a clearing. It is roughly circular. The grass grows thin and sparse across it. The trees around its edge are bent and twisted in ways that have no satisfying meteorological explanation, their trunks corkscrewed and leaning inward, as though recoiling from something at the center. And in that clearing, nothing grows with any reliable consistency. Soil samples have been taken, tests have been run. No definitive explanation has been produced for why that particular patch of earth behaves the way it does. Petrescu, like Sift before him, simply reported what he found. He did not embellish it, he did not need to. The local people had known for much longer, of course. Folklore does not wait for scientists to catch up. For generations, the residents of the surrounding villages had treated the forest with a careful, practiced distance. Shepherds occasionally reported leading flocks into the tree line, and emerging hours later, disoriented, with no clear account of where the time had gone. A shepherd, the story is old, the name lost, is said to have walked into Hoia Baciu with 200 sheep and never returned. Not the sheep, not the man, no trace was ever recovered. This kind of story belongs to a certain category of rural legend that is easy to dismiss. Except that the dismissals have a way of becoming more complicated the longer you sit with the details. What makes Hoia Baciu genuinely difficult to explain away is not any single event, but the accumulation, the sheer, stubborn persistence of the same categories of experience, reported across different decades, different types of people, different conditions. Visitors who enter the forest with cameras and recording equipment frequently find that the equipment stops working. Batteries drain without explanation. Cameras shut down. Audio recorders produce static or simply go dark. This is not universal. Not every device fails every time. But the frequency with which it happens, and the frequency with which the same devices work perfectly well the moment their owners step back beyond the tree line, has been noted by enough independent observers that it is difficult to attribute entirely to coincidence. Investigators from the Romanian Society for Parapsychology documented this phenomenon across multiple visits. They were not amateurs chasing shadows. They came with equipment, with methodology, with the intention of producing verifiable data. What they produced ultimately was a record of anomalies they could not explain. That is a different thing from fabrication. It is also, in its own way, a different thing from proof. There are people who have walked into the forest and come out marked. Rashes appearing on exposed skin. A burning sensation, sometimes localized, sometimes spreading. Nausea. Headaches that arrive suddenly and leave without explanation. Anxiety of a kind that several visitors have described not as a mood, but as a physical pressure, as though the air itself were bearing down. The skeptical explanation is psychosomatic. People enter a place with a reputation, and their nervous systems do what nervous systems do under the influence of suggestion. This is a reasonable argument. It accounts for a great deal. It does not fully account for the cases where visitors reported no prior knowledge of the forest's reputation and experienced the same symptoms anyway. The photograph taken by Alexandru Sift in 1968 was not the last piece of visual documentation. Over the subsequent decades, dozens of photographs taken inside or above Hoia Baciu have produced anomalies, lights, shapes, what some researchers describe as orbs. The images vary in quality and credibility, as such things always do. A handful have resisted easy debunking. A handful have been explained as lens flare, overexposure, insects caught mid-frame. The handful in between, neither cleanly explained nor cleanly discredited, is the category that tends to linger. There are those who bring an entirely different framework to Hoia Baciu. Researchers interested in electromagnetic anomalies have taken readings inside the forest and found fluctuations they consider significant, variations in atmospheric pressure within the clearing that don't align with the surrounding conditions. These findings are contested. They have not been replicated under conditions that satisfy the strictest scientific requirements. But they have not been entirely refuted either. The forest occupies in this sense a peculiar middle ground, not validated, not dismissed, not forgotten. What is perhaps most striking about Hoia Baciu is not the strangeness itself, but the way the strangeness refuses to resolve. Most haunted places, if you look long enough, eventually yield to one explanation or another. The ghost is a draught. The figure in the window is a reflection. The noise in the night is the house settling into its foundations. The world, when examined carefully, tends to offer answers. Imperfect ones sometimes, but answers nonetheless. Hoia Baciu has been examined carefully. It has been visited by researchers, paranormal investigators, documentary crews, physicists, botanists, and skeptics armed with every instrument they could carry. The clearing is still there. The twisted trees still lean. The equipment still, sometimes, fails. And the shepherd and his 200 sheep, they remain, after all these years, unaccounted for. There are questions that deserve to be asked about Hoia Baciu. There are also questions that may never be answered, not because the truth is being withheld, but because some things resist the particular tools we have developed for understanding them. Whether that resistance is meaningful, or whether it is simply the resistance of ignorance waiting to be overcome, is a question the forest has not chosen to answer. It has time. It has been standing there for a very long while, and it is, by most accounts, still waiting.